Today, we are breaking down the best and worst rookie performances from week number 7. Let's get right into this. This list does include the best and worst performers, but if you guys want to see a comprehensive list of every single rookie who has taken a snap this year and seeing a quick summarized week by week understanding of how they did, feel free to go over and join the Patreon, $5 a month. On top of that, stock report. You guys love that series as well. Very similar to this, where I end up talking about the draft prospects week by week. You guys end up going and check that out and get an extended version of it there, as well as a breakdown of my big board, as well as every single draft prospect that I've graded in all 22. Let's get into this, starting out with the superstars of the week. Nick Scorton's back on the list. He had a fantastic week there for Carolina, has shown up really, really well as one of my top edge rushers coming out of the draft, and he has shown up big time. 64 defensive grade this past week with 6 pressures and a defensive stop, the most this past week. And I think that it was double number 2 from this past week. So that's a huge achievement there for Nick Scorton. The next best in the rookie class was 3 pressures. And again, I care a little bit more about pressures than necessarily anything at the moment for the pass rushing side. Sacks are great, but at the same time, I do want to see pass rush win rate. I want to see those pressures. That's what I really put a lot of value into. Again, PFF grades are not the end all be all, but it's just a quick way to get you guys a quick summarization of what is going on. But Nick Scorton looking like a true edge 1, which is fantastic. Still need to get somebody for the long haul there at edge 2. I think Umam Yellen, who's going to be on this list, is going to be a very quality edge 3, but just get someone a little bit more consistent overall as a run defender as well. Then we got Kyle Monangai, running back for the Bears. This was one of my top 10 running backs coming into the draft, and he ended up going 7th round. Crazy. And I really love this pick. I thought he might have been getting the RB1 role going forward, but I mean, you don't really have to have that in a Ben Johnson offense. He is shown to be a little bit more of the thunder to the lightning that is DeAndre Swift, who is also hitting his stride very well right now. This past week, 13 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. 0 missed tackles forced, which I do want to see that bump up, but also 2 receptions on 2 targets for 13 yards. So again, grand total 15 touches for 94 yards and a touchdown. Amazing performance there for a 7th round pick. Quinshon Judkins, kind of a little bit the opposite. We go from round 7 to round number 2 at the top of it. But he has been fantastic all year long. This past week, 25 carries, 84 yards, and 3 touchdowns. If it weren't for the 3 touchdowns, obviously he would not be in the superstar. Probably would end up being in like the star list, but it's still a really good performance. And on top of that, 6 missed tackles forced. Usually he's been a little bit more active in the air game, but again, when you get 3 touchdowns on the ground, I don't think too many people are going to complain. Quinshon is shown to be a top tier running back in the NFL, which is amazing to see. Travis Hunter back on the list again. We're starting to see some mainstays, which is kind of the whole entire point of this, saying, hey, who is going to be taking on these bigger roles? Who's going to be performing week by week very, very well? And Travis Hunter ended up showing out this past week as both a corner as well as a wide receiver. Wide receiver wise, he was targeted 12 times, catching 8 passes for 101 yards and a touchdown. He also had a carry, ended up being 0 yards. So 9 touches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. On defense, he played a more limited role, but still had an 82 defensive grade, targeted once, allowing 0 receptions, and had a pass breakup. So arguably the best performance of the entire week. However, we had a lot of really good ones, and it only continues with Oronde Gadsden II, tight end there for the Los Angeles Chargers. Oronde ended up running into me, funnily enough, at the Shrine Bowl. So I've been very intimate with how well built Oronde Gadsden is. And he might be 236. This dude is built to the 9, like no body fat at all. Really good athlete. And this past week showed out for a team that really needed some tight end production. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Did have a drop again, if I'm not mistaken. Not a huge fan of when guys end up having drops. I do think that's a little bit of an issue for this rookie class. A lot of these guys are having those drop issues, but I'm going to ignore that for the time being. I do think he'll end up being a high-end tight end 2. If you can end up having a really solid blocking tight end 1 or tight end 2 combo, you could end up having them as a nice 1-2 punch. I think Eli Raridan from Notre Dame is going to be a great option there for the Chargers if they want to exercise that option early. But Oronde Gadsden, an amazing performance. Again, 164 yards from a tight end is just crazy. Now, is he a full-time inline tight end? No. but still. Really, really good weapon there. A great steal for the Chargers. Then we have someone who's been bouncing between the studs of the week and the duds of the week. We got Quincy Riley, cornerback for the New Orleans Saints. The past week, he actually had like a 27 defensive grade. This week, bounces back, 73 defensive grade, a defensive stop, targeted 6 times, getting 3 receptions on him for 25 yards, but got an interception and a pass breakup. Great performance there for Quincy, who is showing that with the highs and the lows, he's going to be someone well worth keeping on your roster. Maybe not a full-time starter as a true 2, but I think you're not going to ignore an upgrade at 2. I think that if you need to put him there situationally, you're not going to be too pissed off with the results. Then we got Nick Eamon-Warry for the Seattle Seahawks. This guy's been fantastic, man. I mean, I'm telling you, there's that one clip of him this past week pretty much going full Superman layout for the pass breakup, and it was just so awesome. Statistically, I mean, he did a really good job, but it really was that one play that solidified him as a superstar of the week. Again, kind of arbitrary between star, superstar of the week, but still worth mentioning. But he ended up having a 67 defensive grade, 3 defensive pressures. Along with that, he was targeted 7 times, allowing 3 receptions for 40 yards. Not a huge fan of that, but had a pair of pass breakups, including one of the most beautiful, it's like Picasso essentially through Nick Eamon-Warry, looking at how he ended up breaking up that pass. So fantastic job there for Nick Eamon-Warry. Then we'll talk about the rest of the stars of the week. I've actually demoted a couple guys I ended up thinking were superstars. I thought star of the week was actually pretty light. And Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, in my opinion, even though they lost because their kicker ended up missing 2 PATs. I'm just going to put that out there. But I honestly think both of them had arguably superstar-worthy performances. So Jackson Dart threw the ball 33 times, completing only 15 passes. Not a fan of the sub 50%, but of course, he threw 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Granted, he had 3 big-time throws, which I love, but 2 turnover-worthy plays, so you could discuss whether the 1 interception matters a little bit more, a little bit less. But then he also had 5 carries for 11 yards and a touchdown. So altogether, having 4 total touchdowns is like a really, really good feat against one of the most difficult teams to play against. I mean, again, shitty way to end the game, right? You were up 19-0, end up losing the game, but you still end up having a top tier performance against a top tier defense. I think that's really, really good. And you ended up leading a 2-minute drive there. So Jackson Dart making me eat my words with having some doubts with him. And honestly, again, this is the exact reason why I end up saying I would prefer to be wrong about someone that I don't like, because I'd rather take the lessons from Jackson Dart and enjoy watching such a good football player than kind of be like, haha, you busted a 1st-round pick. Like, that's just not, it's cool to be like, okay, cool. Like, if I say I don't like something, has a little more weight to it. But I'd much rather just be like, I'm just going to learn my mistake and end up enjoying Sunday. That's how I vibe. But Cam Scatterbo as well, 16 carries, 60 yards with 4 missed tackles forced. Along with that, 3 completions on 5 targets for 34 yards and a touchdown. Grand total, 19 touches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. So good performance there from Cam Scatterbo. Again, as a rookie, that is a true RB1 level performance. If you could do that week over week, that ends up garnering you something that I think should be a superstar. Prince Umamielen, we talked about Nick Scorton earlier, edge rusher from South Carolina. Edge rusher from the Carolina Panthers. I wanted to start talking about South Carolina. I'm still in draft mode, but this past week, Princely ended up having 60 defensive grade, 3 pressures, and 2 stops. A really solid performance. Well worth getting a nod here. Malachi Moore ended up having a really good week there for the Jets. I still also had his buddy Azareye'h Thomas as a winner of the week. Did not end up being a star of the week because he did end up arguably having some PI on his pass breakup, but on top of that, ended up kind of getting toasted here and there. But you guys know me, love Azareye'h Thomas, but this is for Malachi Moore. 70 defensive grade, 2 defensive stops, targeted twice, allowing 1 reception for -2 yards and a pass breakup. He was also listed as someone who should have been in the superstars of the week. But again, those 3, because Umamielen randomly ended up being above Malachi Moore. Again, it's not in a particular order, but there's only 7 guys I thought were worthy of star of the week, while I ended up having like 10 guys worthy of superstar. Usually is the opposite ratio. But regardless, continuing, Mason Graham also had a really good week, 79 defensive grade, a pressure and 3 stops, along with apparently someone targeted him and ended up being incomplete, is what it is. But seeing him be one of the top performers on a defense is really crucial. And again, the Browns ended up putting belt to ass. So it's good to see that. Dominic Ezeraku, edge rusher for the Dallas Cowboys, also has had a really consistent season. 61 defensive grade, 3 pressures, and 3 stops. Tyler Warren's always been on this list as a winner. He's just a winner, man. Needs to chill out with the drops, because I think it's been almost every single week that he's had a drop now. But 5 targets, 4 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown along with said drop. Can't complain about that. I mean, really good tight end 1 performance right there from somebody who's now been on this list a lot of times. And then after everybody's been ripping Kenneth Grant a new asshole, I was definitely not on board with KG being taken that early. But I understand that he has a development curve that is not usual for a first round pick. And people were just getting all up in arms about it. And it's like, guys, this is not, I mean, he's going to still have some struggles. This is someone who is going to be a year 2, year 3 kind of guy. This organization, I think, got way too ballsy thinking they had better job security, because Kenneth Grant wasn't someone to keep your job. He wasn't an instant impact type of guy. But he still has his games here and there that are fantastic, like this past week. 64 defensive grade, a pressure, and 4 defensive stops. Better than Mason Graham. So, I mean, I'm just going to put that out there. He ended up being, in terms of the impact plays, more plentiful, still growing as a talent. Absolutely. Still having some bad plays here and there, but there is a bigger growth curve for Kenneth Grant than I think people expect with the top 15 pick, which is why I wasn't a fan of him being that. It puts expectations that doesn't really benefit his growth. But then you got Tez Johnson, who ended up having 4 receptions on 7 targets for 58 yards and a touchdown. Only reason that he's actually on this list is because I know he should have probably produced a little bit more. Baker's a little bit off, but I do think Tez Johnson could have had an even better night if there was a little bit more synergy. And again, some guys just don't have the best game every single week. It happens. But I think that for the long run, Tez Johnson, we all knew that the talent was there. It's good to see that, knock on wood, it's not a Tank Dell situation with the injuries, but maybe it could be a Tank Dell situation in terms of the effectiveness at a smaller size. Then you got Chim DK, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Ended up having 4 targets, 4 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. For someone who's been very unproductive as a wide receiver, it is amazing to see this. He's been a great returner, but again, I focus a lot more on the offensive and the defensive side of things. Now let's talk about the duds of the week. The fun part, Jahdae Barron, defensive back for the Denver Broncos. Lowest grade on the team defensively with a 27 defensive grade, targeted twice, allowing 2 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. For a first-round pick, I don't expect those type of slip-ups. Then we have Jalen Rivers, mainstay of the show. Derek Harmon ended up having his way, and honestly, I'm quite surprised that I did not end up labeling Derek Harmon for a winner or a star of the week. But Jalen Rivers this week again, 37 in both pass block and run blocking grade per PFF, and 5 pressures allowed. He's had some good moments, but again, moments don't matter for offensive linemen. It's consistency, and they pulled out the win. I guess that's what matters. But I would say this is somebody who should still be in a rotation, has just been thrusted into the starting role pretty early. Then we have, once again, Jonathan Edwards, the cornerback from Indianapolis. He ended up being on this list last week for being toasted a little bit less this week. Last week it was over 100 yards. This week, 53 defensive grades, 6 targets, 4 receptions allowed for 48 yards and a touchdown. Whenever I see those touchdowns in there, it just kind of is a little knife to the gut there. But again, back-to-back weeks with just being really, really unproductive. Very obvious that the Colts need to be investing in the depth of their corner core. Then, once again, Jonas Savania is on a 2, I think he's just above 2.0 on pass blocking grade for the entire year. And he ended up being absolutely eviscerated with a bull rush, I think in the 4th quarter too, because I remember Quinn Ewers was behind him. He had a 4 pass blocking grade this game with 2 pressures allowed. I ended up going back being like, did I like this pick? Did I not? I didn't like the trade up, but I still thought it was a good fit, and I thought it was a good pick. I am bewildered that Jonas Savania is this ass. I don't think anybody could have thought that he'd be this bad. And I honestly think you need to take him and put him at tackle. I think that he has shown that he cannot handle the pressure of being a guard. He cannot handle being in short space, which is like, well, if you can't handle short space, can you handle a lot more? We'll see. He ended up doing it at college a lot better. There's nothing from college that ended up saying this guy is going to be this bad. I had him as like a day 3 pick in terms of my grade. I did not expect this. It's very surprising. And again, especially when you factor in a trade up, this is the worst pick of the entire draft. There's no second guessing that. Then you have Connor Colby. He's been a 7th round pick. So again, it's not like, oh, this is a horrible move, but he's been starting along with a billion dudes who are pretty much, bottom feeders in the NFL, starting for the Niners. But 23 pass blocking grade, 2 pressures allowed. Every single week, this guy's been a loser in terms of, I'm not saying he's a loser as a person, but, for my list, if you guys are new, I have not applicable if you don't have enough reps. I want you to have more than 10 reps for me to actually give you a grade. I don't think there's a representative sample size with that, but a winner, a loser, and then a mediocre performer. So that basically describes the discrepancies there. But Connor Colby has been a pretty big disappointment, even though he's been getting reps. They have not been very good quality reps. Then we'll talk about the rest of the losers of the week. Jacob Parrish also flirting with both lists 24/7. He's just been on it every single week. He either has an amazing week or he has some pretty big slip-ups that end up making him put into this category. But he ended up having a 33 defensive grade this past week with two stops, a pressure, and then he was targeted 4 times, allowing 3 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. The big touchdown ends up sealing it off, but the pressure and 2 stops keeps him off the dud list. Then we have James Pierce Jr. for the Atlanta Falcons. Easily could have ended up being on duds list because he ended up being absolutely eviscerated with by one of the tackles. He had a 51 defensive grade, did not have a single pressure or stop, and he was targeted 1 time, allowing a reception for 13 yards. Demetrius Knight, linebacker for the Bengals, he had some good moments in there, but in terms of the coverage, and then, we'll talk about it in a second, but yeah, he's been pretty inconsistent or pretty consistently poor, especially in coverage. But he had a pressure 44 defensive grade, a defensive stop this past week, targeted 6 times, allowing 5 completions for 26 yards. You might say that's not the worst performance ever, but he had 4 missed tackles this past week. That's, I believe, over 50% that he went after. I'm not a huge fan of knocking guys for missed tackles here and there because I do think that, especially when you're getting used to the speed of the game, there's going to be some slip ups and you want to see it just improve. But when you are missing that many, it's when I'm going to raise an eyebrow. And then number, still in mock draft mode. Next, we have Pat Bryant, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. He was targeted twice and getting 1 reception for 6 yards. Did have a drop, though. You guys know me. Whenever a guy has a drop and then doesn't produce outside of it, I'm going to have some issues. Then Jaden Higgins and Dante Thornton have the same exact stat line. Targeted 3 times and getting 0 receptions. Bottom line, you need to be a little bit more productive. Actually, I'll toss in Torrey Horton, the exact same situation. So Dante Thornton, Jaden Higgins, and Torrey Horton, wide receiver for the Texans, Raiders, and Seahawks, respectively, all ended up having 3 targets and got 0 receptions each. Obviously, there's more to the story than that, but I do still believe that through adversity, you need to perform. And it just sucks. Then you got Francisco Mauigoa, linebacker for the Jets. I think he was one of the stars of the week last week. Had a 30 defensive grade this past week. No big time plays in terms of run stops or pressures. Ended up being targeted 3 times, allowing 3 receptions for 30 yards. Then we have Josh Connerly, 43 pass blocking grade and 4 pressures allowed. Bottom line, should not have been a right tackle. Ended up being annihilated at the Senior Bowl with his 1 rep at right tackle versus Mike Green, at one of his reps at right tackle. And then they're like, we're going to take him in the first round and put him at right tackle full time. To me, he should have been a left tackle. I wasn't a huge fan of the fit, and I'm still not doing so. But someone who also is bouncing between the best and the worst performances of the week is also Trey Amos. I think overall he's been great, but this past week, 49 defensive grade, a defensive stop, targeted 4 times, allowing 4 receptions for 58 yards. Going up against one of the best dynamic duo wide receivers in the entire country. I think that's going to be perfectly reasonable to have some slip-ups as a rookie. But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching, showing the sport you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.